Hi, this is Privateer Station, and apologies at first for the quality of sound. We are recording that episode en route, so our environment is a little different. Happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate, and today we're bringing you the usual day 274 with Olexiy Arestovich, advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feigin Live. It is Thursday, November 24th, 10:05 in Kiev, 11:05 in Moscow. We continuing our streams, and it is day 274 on our channel. With Olexiy Arestovich. Olexiy, glad to see you. Good evening, Mark. We have over 120,000 watching us live, over 28,000 click the like button. The usual ask to please continue sharing links to that stream. In Ukraine, they do suffer from electric blackouts, and internet is also spotty, so those people who miss the live cast might get a chance to find it by the links you post everywhere you can. We hope they do get their internet back and can join us, at least view that show, that stream in the recording. And of course, if you can, if it doesn't bother you too much, click the like button. It does help us to promote that media and to promote the message. Subscribe to Feigin Live. We are about 11,000 away from 2 million figure, and that helps to promote the streams as well. And of course to Olexiy Arestovich channel and to the Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that in English. Let's start, Olexiy. Let's start maybe with the situation on the front. I think I'll show the map. Nothing major is happening, but we can address a few things. We're showing Kherson now. So they were active shellings of Kherson in the last 24 hours. I think there were 17, a lot of wounded and dead people. So they started systemic shelling of the city, and we understand that that will continue because we know whom we're working with. So we are trying to counter, of course. What are they using? What are they using to target the city and the troops and people? Field artillery, not cruise missiles, not even an S-300. So yeah, that's what's happening. Also, everywhere else in the same cadence as yesterday, the day before yesterday as well, there is a certain lull or decreasing of activity on the front that usually happens before the activity picks up, and we expect them to pick it up on Donetsk and Lugansk regions, because political task of so-called liberation of so-called Donetsk and Lugansk regions, nobody has cancelled yet, so they will be trying to fulfill that task. Can you elaborate on the forces that they're accumulating there? Not really forces, tiers. 4 to 6 battalion tactical groups. Not too much at all, but according to the measurements of this war, that's enough group to at least attempt something. They will probably try to do some offensive in some part of the front, but very likely they will not achieve any success because, how should I put it delicately, it's not only their troops that are not engaged in Kherson anymore. Are you with us, Olexiy? Sometimes the internet slows down, I'm not sure you're listening. Yes, I'm here. Okay, tell us more about what's happening on Solidar and that direction. Nothing drastic for today. There were no major movements. They do small tactical attacks and we counterattack. Is it the same thing near Bakhmut? Yes, same thing. If there was anything principal different, I would definitely have mentioned. There is nothing yet. All right. How can we gauge their attempts to engage mobilized as well? How many of them are there? We can say at least 50% of troops on that front are mobilized. 50%, that's significant, right? Yeah, it is. And right now they're mobilized backbone of their troops. And they're trying to save the existing cores, and whenever they have one that still has some officers and some commanding personnel intact, they take it out of the front and refit it with mobilized and then bring it back. So they stop grinding them to the last person. So very few cadre military is left. There'd usually be a little bit of them in the group and the troop, and then 60+% would be mobilized. So how do they fight? Can we draw already some conclusions? They're all different. They're all different, Mark. Some of them are very ideological. There are those that are trying and running and attempting. And then there are a majority of others who don't even want to be on the front. En masse, they, regardless of their ideation, they're very poorly trained. They don't know how to do things. And their battle worthiness overall of their army went down, decreased significantly, but the quantities are still there. They can do kind of Zerg rushes on our front, but they cannot do more complicated ones. They cannot do coordination with different kinds of troops. They cannot coordinate artillery, infantry, aviation, other maneuvers. But yeah, they can still continue going into the frontal attacks or provide some defense to their positions. So what about their losses? Since there's not much of real active events happening on the front, their losses somewhat decreased. So, like right now, they're at about 600 to 400 losses daily. I do not remember lower than 400 throughout the whole war per day that they lost. Whenever they actively attack, it's closer to 1,000. But right now, yeah, it's about 600, 400 per day, whenever there is no really active movement happening. Generally, on Soledar-Bakhmut direction, we waste about a battalion on their side daily. Okay, that's significant. Thank you. I think that's it on the map, right? We discussed the major. Let's go back to what Lukashenko was stating on Commonwealth Treaty, Security Treaty Organization, CSTO summit. Lukashenko was talking about negotiations, that they're important and imperative for Ukraine to survive. And then he talked about the story of Makiivka, so-called, when the Russian troops were shot during the incident, during surrender attempt. And he was threatening that you are going to wake the Russian bear and you finally woken it. And he said that also Belarus will not be able to change the situation on the front, but he is somewhat active though. He talks a lot. It appears that they are at least trying to do something in the north. Why we're discussing it is because it has a potential to become an active direction again. Mark, I need to disappoint y'all. They neither have a group there, nor they expressively spend resources and efforts on building one. So, how many they have there? Up to 10,000, that's about it, including all the service personnel and the airports and airfields and such. So, Ukrainian military intel are stating something different. What are they saying? They are considering, yeah, they put a statement that possibly this can become an active front. Yeah, they did say that, but they also said that it will probably take them at least 3 months to accumulate enough resources to do it. So it's kind of weird, though, if they're preparing them in Belarus to send them down to Donbass. Oh yeah, Belarus has a very good training base. They still have training facilities from USSR. That's what they're using. Overall Russian training system from Kamchatka to Kaliningrad can accommodate only under 100,000, about 90,000. And that includes all kinds of troops who are doing their routine training, reserve officer training, drafted personnel. So that's why they are eager to use Belarus training facilities as well. Overall, they do not show anything remotely serious, anything that can pose any threat to us right now. Whenever we start seeing that group, then we can say that, okay, the clock is ticking. But until that moment, there is no real threat. And it may take quite a bit of time for them to aggregate that group. I suspect that whole new attack from the Belarus side is only a part of their theatricals for negotiations. Wasting people from Donbass side and Lugansk side and maybe defending Crimea, you can still somewhat sell to your people as attempt to hold your territory, but wasting people on the front down from Belarus, that'll be a difficult sell. Well, Lukashenko is talking that Ukraine needs to negotiate, otherwise there will not be Ukraine. Yeah, he's talking, but it doesn't mean that they will be invading from Belarus. Because if you start moving, you basically open a new front, a new operative direction, with new logistics, more efforts. This definitely is not about negotiations. It doesn't ring a bell proper. We attacked you from Belarus direction to persuade you to negotiate. That doesn't really make sense, doesn't jive. What jives is we grabbed another piece of Lugansk or Donetsk regions, so let's sit down and negotiate to push Ukraine and the international community to say, okay, well, it's just these two regions, just give them up, forget them, and let's settle that peacefully. So I suspect they will continue trying to keep taking Donetsk remnants and also try to kick us out from Lugansk. At least that's my suspicions. Okay.
Окей, ладно.
So regardless of the prognosis about Belarus and some people's desires that it materializes, unfortunately material facts do not support that. There is a very minor threat. Okay, let's look at other things. We are discussing the consequences of missile strikes again. So, after the Security Council meeting of United Nations, when Nebenza again spouted some of his rhetoric, there is also commentary from Peskov, Putin's speaker, in their usual style. That special operation, as they call this war, is going according to the plan and is fulfilling its goals. There were no hits on the social infrastructure objects, and we are not hitting them and not planning to. And leadership of Ukraine can stop sufferings of people and can alleviate that horrific situation by sitting down at the negotiations table. I would, at this point, just take that statement and shove it back in his mouth, because that's exactly what the terrorism looks like. They're basically saying in that statement, we are causing sufferings and harm to peaceful citizens so that you would go and negotiate. This is terrorism definition in pure form. That's what terrorists usually do. We'll let them go if you sit down and negotiate with us on our terms. Interesting.
Интересно. Ну, видишь как,
Okay, in your view, how quickly
насколько быстро восстановить вообще, и вот нас прямую касается
can the community be restored?
связи, то есть, ну,
Things that are
с этого и
relating even our
провайдеры,
web streams, internet, electricity, how long do you think it'll take you? Mark, I'm not a specialist. We will recover. They already restored electricity, heat, internet in many places. A couple days and we should be back online normally. They cannot really destroy that network. I again would remind about the decisive force operation of NATO against Yugoslavia, and they were bombing a very small territory, similar to a couple of provinces of Ukraine, with 1,200 cruise missiles, 73 aviation attacks with more precise bombs and munitions, and of course they were targeting energy centers and other infrastructure spots. So at that point, Allies had a much bigger concentration of forces on a much smaller territory, and even at that, they failed to fully disrupt the activity, the economy and energy of the country, energy systems. Here we're talking about Ukraine that was designed to withstand a total nuclear war with NATO. So yes, they are causing certain discomfort to the country, but they cannot fully destroy that network. Our population, instead of suffering, for the most part, are posting memes and cheering themselves up, and if anything, Putin's regime is failing to achieve an effect they want to. And world community also sees that as a terrorist activity, and they're giving us additional support. They're providing us more tools to cover our skies from Russian missiles. And we understand that we do want Russia to be out of all international organizations. It's just a slow process, and it takes a long time to do, in some cases probably even impossible. But everything they do with the blackouts of the hospitals, while the surgeries are ongoing for the little kids, that basically has the makings of genocide and military war crime. So they were recognized as a terrorist state, and it just takes a few more steps to really push them into the bottle. Okay, next news that deserves discussion is that, in general, European Union is practically ready to implement the price corridor, but there are different opinions being voiced within the European Union itself. For example, Estonia is eager to use their right of veto in relation to that price corridor, said their Minister of Foreign Affairs. Why? Because they consider the price corridor to be too high for Putin's regime, too high of a margin, too high of a profit to be paying to be allowing Putin's regime to collect. And also they might protest that because they want to promote and push the 9th package of sanctions and would like to trade their position on this for pushing the sanctions package faster. So Estonia, Latvia, and the Baltic states, they think that this price of oil is too high and leaves too much margin for Russia, profit margin. So Peskov backfired, saying the countries that support that corridor will not even be getting Russian oil. But what do you think? Does that price indeed look a little too high, too good for Putin's regime? It's basically at about 50-60% from the current price, current market price. It's somewhat pretty high. Well, Mark, foreign countries, European countries, and our allies, they are usually behaving in the same pattern. They are creating a funnel that tightens and sucks the offender in harder and harder if they refuse to follow the prompts, to follow the guidance. So, in effect, there'll be more people, more countries supporting that. And if Russians will stop supplying oil or will explicitly restrict certain countries who voted for that against receiving or using Russian products, then good, they're shrinking down their own income. It's a very long story, Mark. It's difficult to undermine the economy of a regime such as Putin's. It is a very ambitious attempt, but it goes, it evolves, just takes a bit of time. And, being diplomatic, being democratic, European Union needs to address positions of their members. They need to listen to the Hungarian point. And by the way, Hungary paid 200 million plus euros to the budget for the next year that European Union pledged to give Ukraine for the next year to subsidize their economic situation. And actually that does help. That decision overall helps us to remain stable, to remain economically solvent, and remain in relatively good shape despite the situation. And also that corridor, indeed, it may look a little loose at first, but it does allow them some wiggle room to shrink it later if Russia will not get the message. And it also does achieve the main goal, precluding Russia from using any measures that they can think of to push the price on the market, the oil price on the market higher, and get some super profits in a short time frame. So, regardless of the market jumps, regardless of the situation on the world energy market, the oil can be at $200 due to Iranian provocations, but Russian oil will still not be able to break a barrier of 65. If this corridor was not implemented, then Iranians could disrupt the world supply, shoot a missile into one of the tankers, send the price going high, and for a short period, Russia could also be getting super profits from selling their energy products. So that measure actually cuts the wings on both, not just Russia, but Russia and Iran. So they cannot really manipulate these prices. Now, if they do that, if they cause a fluctuation on the market and shoot a oil tanker or somebody, then it'll be other countries like Saudi Arabia reaping the profits of that situation, and Russia will not. I think this is one of the major arguments in this price corridor question. It precludes Russia from getting super level incomes from any provocations that can cause the change of oil on the world market, change of oil price. There was also a message that Biden discussed that with Yellen, the head of the reserve and financial system in the States, that they discussed that corridor. And by the way, embargo is looming. Embargo on Russian oil products is looming for big parts of the world. There's only 10 days left. See, there is another news I wanted to bring up. Not even yesterday's, I think the day before yesterday. It has an ironic context. So the message was that Vice Director of CIA, Marlow, made a public statement that in one of the interviews, I'll read it verbatim, Vice Director David Marlow
Марл. Тут у нас певец в России есть
We
Марл.
have a singer in Russia with the same last name.
Родственник, видимо.
Invited
Сейчас
Russian
российских военных
oligarchs
по олигархам
to cooperation.
сотрудничеству.
Foreign secret services
Западные спецслужбы
understand the imminent crash of Putin's regime is looking for oligarchs to work with them. So they're saying the news basically advises those who can to jump ship, and they're saying also later in the interview that they have enough candidates. I actually saw a similar situation at the end of USSR when the old USSR republics, people from power system, from FSB and KGB in those days, from those Kazakhstans and other republics were looking for contacts in the West, and they were suggesting, they were offering for funny prices like $200, $500 to bring a part of an archive of KGB for Kyrgyzstan. And why I'm bringing that is that that activity usually spikes right before the crash of the regime. And I understand this could be more of a trolling article, but can you comment on Ukrainian special services? How much outreach, how much information sources do they get? Do they have now? How successful are they? You talked before the war that, or at the beginning of the war, that there is quite a network of information sources in the power ministries of Russia. Well, Mark, I don't have an exact data. You understand that? I do, but maybe what's your impression? My impression is that we do have enough sources for all kinds of information. So there are people who work with Ukrainian special services. Of course they are. But we should be talking probably about high-ranking political figures. And as the crash approaches, there'll be more people, more members of Putin's system looking for a way to escape to the West. And there would be FSB, then other special services, and then military. That'll be the order of them falling. So Russian military will be the last to jump that ship. But there will be more of those. They'll be looking for ways to surrender. They'll be looking for ways to communicate. Putin is decisively leading Russian Federation to the point where for those chicken legs, chicken wings, they were calling bush legs, referring to the main supply item for Soviet Union in the times of product difficulties at the end of USSR. So they will likely be selling a lot of cigarettes for just that, for food. Because many of them will also be looking for not just money, they'll be looking for shelter, they'll be looking for a way to survive, because those people who are part of a system now, they might be pretty scared for their lives at the end of it, when it will start crumbling. Because like every revolution, those who supported the previous power, they get in a precariously difficult position as it unfolds. So, okay, today's 24th of November. It's been 9 months of this war going. Have there been situations where some of these leaks, some of this information, advice indeed helped Ukraine? The information that was passed by people working and living under Putin's regime? One should say here that these agent intel is more strategic level, is for strategic level, so they are helping us solve strategic level questions. Operative level matters. You need operative intel. It's also using agents, but different level of agent. And their main means are a little different. They're more of a frontline intel operations, radio technical intel, aerospace intel, and some internal agents intel on the military front. So these things together combined, they help us with our attacks, with our operations. For example, to let us know if they're aggregating new troops or preparing for offensive, or to let us know that they're ready to run. we used a lot of that information during Kharkov liberation push. What was the share, what was the ratio of strategic to the agent on the front data, it's hard to tell. But, for example, when HIMARS are shooting at targets, we definitely use a lot of intel on the ground. So we do get their intel about their locations, positions, movements. There is also a rule of never verify the information via the same source. So if you received information from people, from agents, you need to use a different source like radio electronic or airspace intel. If these different means of intel show that they confirm that other piece that you received, then it is treated as reliable, as highly reliable. And even if somebody sacrificed their lives, their position, it will be, that data will still be verified by other means, and we try to stay proper on that. And intel is a thing, it's an ongoing, evolving effort. It doesn't stop. It's an ongoing data gathering effort, so I would say it's ongoing on all levels. Okay, a lot of people have joined us. We're at about 300,000, and about a third already are clicking the like button. Please continue share links to that stream in your social media and everywhere else. Click that like button. That helps us immensely. We get, on the Privateer channel, we get about half of our views from the recommendations on YouTube, so please continue to click the like button. And of course, subscribe. Feygin Live needs a little bit to reach 2 million. If you have not yet, make that push. And if you are listening or watching that in English, please continue helping us as well. Subscribe to Privateer Station and help us reach 20,000 mark. Okay, coming back to Belarus from a different angle. Police of Belarus have identified at least 160 citizens that are partaking in military actions on the side of Ukraine. I understand they are talking about Kalinovsky brigade, and there are hundreds of people there. We don't have data how many of them are. This is a secret information, but they are calculating, and they're trying to figure out who is fighting against. And looking at Lukashenko's rhetoric, he's somewhat scared of these combatants, of those people who are making effort to fight. And he undertakes certain operative measures to try to determine their personas, their IDs, and to know whom to target. And I heard several people on Belarus channels and in Ukraine as well asking question why Zelensky is not talking to Svetlana Tikhanovskaya directly. Is there a difference between the political entity of Kalinovsky detachment on the front and Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who is recognized as a president, duly elected in the last elections in Belarus, but overrun by Lukashenko's regime? So I see Svetlana Tikhanovskaya as a legally elected leader of Belarus, who is in exile. Kalinovsky detachment is a detachment in Ukrainian military. Formally, according to the documents, they are related to the military of Ukraine. They do have political rhetoric, they do position themselves on the political field too, but one needs to understand they are somewhat limited politically because they are part of Ukrainian army forces. So Lukashenko is conducting effectively the control of Belarus, and he's doing anything he can to preclude any other forces taking over. And he's also maneuvering to try to avoid Belarus joining forces with Russia in that war. So you do have a choice here to help him to avoid escalation, or to push him to the brink and induce him to participate in escalation. So from that point of view, official meeting of Zelensky with Svetlana Tikhanovskaya will definitely be pushing towards Belarus participating in the war on a grander scale, to Lukashenko perhaps making an emotional decision or just pushing him to that conclusion. So do we need to arrange that meeting? And also, do we want to fight Belarus citizens here on the front? We don't need that right now, because Lukashenko may still take an emotional decision to throw his people in the front. And we also don't want them as people to remember that Ukrainians were killing Belarus people. So we are maneuvering in the same manner, I guess. We are maneuvering our way to avoid the direct conflict with Belarus. We are saying that Belarus is participating in the war by providing their territory for Russian strikes on Ukraine. And we have not recognized Lukashenko as the duly elected leader. But right now, Belarus, out of 15 or 16 signs of military aggression, they fit the mark for 13 of them. But we do not want to increase the number of enemies by adding Belarus military to Russian military. So we are trying to provide them a window to avoid entering this war. I would remind here that smart leaders do look for ways to increase their capabilities and to diminish these capabilities' growth for their enemies. Adopting Svetlana Tikhanovskaya as an official leader figure for Belarus and supporting her in this effort will definitely create a situation when you would be pushing a current Belarus leadership to partake with Russia in the offensive. So we need to work on a special political level in relation to Belarus. So we are trying to not give Lukashenko a reason to make a very emotional decision and to change that situation. So, okay, we've been live for about 37 minutes. There is one last topic I wanted to discuss that is out there in the interwebs. There is no official data, but it goes that representatives of Russia and Ukraine discussed liberation of some of the prisoners in exchange for letting some of the Russian ammonia to be transferred through a certain pipeline that goes through Odessa. So this went on the news like a very shady message. Reiter posted about that without any details. Yeah, it went through the media as Russia, in exchange for some favorable moves, like liberation or exchange of Ukrainian prisoners, or sticking to the terms of grain exchange, will get an opportunity to transfer some of the fertilizers to Europe customers. So negotiations are still going. I don't know that that ammonia transfer, ammonia pipeline delivery will be solely a Ukrainian subject. I suspect it will be partly European item for discussion. And from the beginning, Russian participation in the grain deal also included some additional bonuses in terms of agricultural means that and products that Russia can provide to the customers, to the markets of Europe. So I don't know if that's happening. I don't know the stage of this process, but possibility for it was discussed early on when we started talking about the grain deal. one of the terms was to give Russia opportunity to supply ammonia and other nutrients, other fertilizers to the world market. So that could be part of that. All right, 40 minutes we've been live. I think we can talk tomorrow about things we have not talked. How are you tomorrow? Tomorrow, no, I have to miss. Tomorrow I'm en route. Saturday? Probably, but I will confirm the day after, so... Okay, over 300 viewers are watching us. Over 100,000 clicked the like button. Please continue sharing links in your social media. That's very important. Continue clicking the like button, and of course continue subscribing to all of our 3 channels, Feigin Live, Olexiy Arestovich, and the Privateer Station. That is super important. Okay, follow our news and announcements tomorrow. We might do streams with other guests, and we thank Olexiy for participation. And next time we'll finish talking about other topics we did not talk about today. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. See you later.